Steve Smith, founder and CEO of HOTWORX, a business that I'm very familiar with because I used to pay for it here in Tyler whenever my daughters, they discovered your business some time ago, man, and loved it. And as a matter of fact, I think my dermatologist, Jenny Holman, is a big HOTWORX person. So to have the founder on the show, man, is really great. So welcome to the show, Steve. Thanks for coming.
Well, Jason, thanks for having us, man. We're excited to talk with you today.
Well, good. Well, there's a couple things I would really like to cover, not the least of which is your entrepreneur's journey. Like I said right before I hit record, I love to, as an entrepreneur myself and someone who has taken an idea from conception to scale it to the point you have with HOTWORX, I think is fantastic. I obviously want to hear about that. I also want to hear about why you and how you came up with the idea of combining sauna and training at the same time. It makes perfect sense, especially now. I mean, it seems to me like you were kind of ahead of the game. Sauna is now kind of, it's like cold therapy, thermogenesis, and all this. And somebody like me who kind of follows all the biohackers and all this, we know about it now, but man, you were understanding the benefits of sauna way before it became such a common thing in the community of which I guess you and I probably are surrounded by. So talk to me a little bit about how this whole thing began with you and HOTWORX.
Yeah, I wrote a book about hot exercise, and in the very first section of the introduction, I talked about this notion of the value of time, right? And you brought up the combination of training and using the sauna at the same time, right? And that's sort of how it began, right? And if you can save customers time, get them more out of a workout in less time, and that is our motto: more workout, less time. Then I don't think that that's going to ever go out of style. Um, of course, you have some gym rats that love to stay in the gym 3 or 4 hours, and we have plenty of customers that will do back-to-back workouts and spend a lot of time in HOTWORX. But by and large, the driving force behind the concept is to get customers more workout in less time. And when you can take the benefits of not just heat, but also infrared energy and combine those two elements with the right type of workout. And I say the right type of workout because it's important. We use types of HIIT training, we use types of isometric training, and those are the two best forms as we see it to combine inside of an infrared sauna. HIIT training for us is a 15-minute workout. The isometric side of the HOTWORX workout method is a 30-minute workout. So, but both of those are much shorter than the typical 1 hour training session that you would be used to in a traditional gym.
So tell me which came first? Was it the sauna fitness? Are you an athlete by trade before this? Like, was health and wellness just something that you were dialed into? Like what came, like, where's the sequence of events that led to HOTWORX?
Yeah, Jason, a lot of events sort of led up to the moment, I guess, of inspiration. And yes, I am an athlete. My dad was an All-American football player. He played for Sweetwater, Texas in high school, quarterback, but then he went on to SMU and played running back.
I'm a pony dude. So pony.
He,
Yeah, absolutely, brother.
he was a Mustang in high school and a Mustang in college as well. His claim to fame is he caught the first pass that Don Meredith threw in college.
That is so
Or-
awesome. So I'm
yeah,
from Don Meredith country, by the way. So Don grew up in Mount Vernon. I grew up in Sulphur Springs. And so that you're talking my language, dude. See, I love finding these little connections. That's awesome. Keep going.
I was born in Denison, Texas.
Ah, very cool. Okay.
I'm a Texan as well. And but my mom moved us over to Mississippi, where she was from when I was 10 years old, and kind of grew up there, wound up going to Ole Miss. And but to sort of answer your question, and I played sports. I never was quite as talented as my dad in football, but then I went on after playing a couple of years in junior college football to a bodybuilding career that lasted about seven years, and I was good at that. Won a number of titles, won the collegiate nationals when I was at Ole Miss when I was on my 21st birthday, actually. So the love of fitness sort of started, I guess, with the um, you know, competitive bodybuilding. It just kind of grew as a passion. I started selling health club memberships when I was 18 years old, and as a part-time job when I in the off season when I was playing the 2 years of college football in junior college. So it kind of began there, and then fast forward to that point of inspiration for combining training with a sauna. I had started doing Bikram yoga, and as an ex football player, ex bodybuilder, weight training guy, gym rat, meathead, whatever you want to call me, um, that was a tough workout. Bikram. My first yoga session was down in Miami at a Bikram studio. I lasted about 20 minutes, and it was very humbling for a fitness guy. But it's a tough workout, 90-minute workout. So I came back to New Orleans where I live now, and after that trip to Miami, and was determined to at least get decent at hot yoga, right? Yeah, I guess I did. And through the course of that, I started thinking about yoga as a business. Being an entrepreneur, I've been in uh, basically an entrepreneur working for myself since the age of 23. Opened a gym, and continued down the membership selling path, and to this day, of course, still selling memberships. But that that foray into Bikram yoga made me start thinking about better ways to offer yoga. And the first consideration to me was, my God, 90 minutes. 90 minutes is a long time, for a busy executive and really for anybody. You have some folks that I guess have more time to devote to their workouts. But you have a lot of folks out there, they got about 30 minutes, hour at the max, maybe 5 days a week if they're lucky, and some maybe 3 days a week. So if they can get it done in 30 minutes, even 15 minutes, 3 times a week, man, that's a big win for a lot of people. So I started thinking about how can this be done in a short amount of time? And I also started thinking about if I ever went into the yoga business, I would certainly make a much better yoga mat and towel because the Bikram places I went to, I'd pay $5 to rent a mat and towel. The mat was very thin and not really wide enough for a guy like me, and the towel looked like it came from Motel 6, and it hurt your knees. So when we did start HOTWORX, I was determined to make a high quality mat and a high quality yoga towel for the isometrics. And then to this day, we have a great mat and towel that our customers love. But so that, as well as creating, continuing on with a sort of athletic style yoga that Bikram offered, but cutting the time down. And then I was on a vacation with some colleagues. My business partner, Nancy, who runs sales for our organization, her husband, Jerome, is a big avid fitness guy and, master's in biology. So, very scientific type of person. And I was telling him we were down at this um, place in Jamaica called the Caves, and we were on a cliff. It was a very sunny day, and I think we were sipping on a rum drink, but we were talking about fitness and working out. And I've told Jerome, I've been doing Bikram yoga, and then I've been going to the small infrared sauna for recovery. And Jerome made a statement. He said, "You know what? They ought to do yoga in a sauna." And when he said that, it was the proverbial light bulb moment for an entrepreneur. And I told Jerome, I said, "You know what? I'm going to go back to New Orleans and design a sauna for that purpose." And that's exactly what I did. Got back to New Orleans, I was in a conference room at our headquarters, and I remember stepping it off as to the size that it should be. So I created the dimensions and then began to consult with manufacturers, and we haven't changed the dimension at all since that time, and it's worked very well for the target customer that we go for. And it took about 10 months to bring that first prototype to life. It showed up at a trade show in New York City for the International Franchise Expo in that would be 20, I think May of 2015. We put it together on the expo hall floor, and it worked. And the workout program that we had for it created a great experience, and we knew we had something. So that's how it started. And originally, we were putting these saws inside of Planet Beach location. Planet Beach was our original franchise that was a tanning salon in the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah.
And then we had to pivot that brand. You know, that industry really went through some rocky times, especially in '08. '10, they tacked on a 10% federal excise tanning tax on tanning services of kind of like the nail in the coffin. The industry shrank by about 80% in a couple of years. So when you're in an industry like that and you go through, a crash like that, you really have to start getting creative and thinking about ways to invent your way out of a mess like that. And, that was also one of the reasons and the result for thinking about something that could really help that brand emerge from that really tough industry. But as fate would have it, originally that sauna was called the Hot Box Detox, which was not going to be the name of the future for that product. So in 2016, I determined that we had to change the name, and we did come up with HOTWORX and came up with a great logo, and then started rebranding the doors for all of the saunas that were out in the field. And that was midsummer of 2016. And shortly thereafter, I felt, you know what, this name and this logo is so good and it's so relevant. This has to become its own fitness franchise. And that said, I got a lease in Oxford, Mississippi, back to the original place where I opened my very first gym. And I'm an Ole Miss graduate. Back in the late '80s, that's when I opened this place called Bodyplex. Strangely enough, you can walk outside of the front door of the original HOTWORX and look to your left, and there's an intersection, and then right across from the intersection is a bail bonds. This bail bonds is the location of that original health club that I opened back in 1986, I believe it was. So, full circle, man. Like life comes at you and it comes back around at you sometimes. So many, many years later, um, opened another brand new brand. This time it was HOTWORX in Oxford, Mississippi, and it took off. Um, I was skeptical. Would customers like the virtual instruction? You know, would they like all of these different workouts side by side going on in these different boxes? How would they react to training inside of a sauna with another person? And and all of those fears turned out to be meritless, and the customers loved it. And we started selling the franchise. So in that first year, we opened that first location February the 13th of 2017. We wound up with 4 locations open by the end of the year. And now fast forward, we should open our 800th location in, September of this year.
That's that's just amazing. It just blows my mind. And again, as someone who has, and I've been a franchisee, and I've thought about doing, there's businesses I've thought about franchising, and so just to hear a success story, to hear you go through that, there's a couple of things that I want to kind of peel back the onion a little bit on. I want you to take me back to that when they put in that excise tax, and I remember that when they put the excise tax in there. When you're kind of faced with a, what in the hell do we do now kind of moment. A lot of people are going to hear that, and to me, it's the behind the scenes there that I want to know about. I mean, because literally before you and I got on, I was reading a story from Ron Chernow's book Titan of John D. Rockefeller, and talking about John D. Rockefeller when he went to get his first job, and he spent, I think it was like 6 weeks trying to get his first job as a bookkeeper, and how he treated that as a job, and the rejection and the anxiety of not having a job, it drove him crazy. And then whenever he finally got his first job as a bookkeeper, he made that for the rest of his life his own personal holiday to remember the day that it was called job day, and it's where his business career began. And it was just that tenacity and that discipline. I think that's what separates the real entrepreneurs and the warriors that are able to make it through those times versus those who just kind of, I'm out, and become that group of in that big clump of people that fail within their first year. Tell me how you start. What did that look like? I mean, in practical terms, you said you kind of wanted to reinvent something or come up with a way to strategize to kind of turn this, a beauty for ashes, I guess. What was going on during that moment? How did you come to the conclusion to get to where you are?
Yeah. Well, setbacks are never a real failure unless you quit. And we were never, nor will we ever quit, right? We'll face setbacks and things happen, and you just got to keep on trucking, right? You have to sit down sometimes with an old school legal pad and think your way through out of a situation. By that, I mean invent your way out, right? Whether it's a new product, whether it's a new process, you know, or whether it's recruiting a new person. And those really are the three P's, right? The people, the process, and the product. I would say, I would argue that the product has to come first, right? And then if you can match it with a great process and the great people, the team, and put those together, then you got something. But you don't have anything without a great product. I mean, you have to start with something that people will like,
Yeah.
and that takes an enormous amount of thought. And then to bring all those three together is very hard. You know, some people think that successful entrepreneurs just have a magic carpet ride. Couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
It's very, very hard, and it's in it being that hard to break through to new levels all the time is why it seems like only a few get to a certain level, and maybe it's true. It's just the ones. I don't think it takes any certain amount of brilliance. It just takes the tenacity, like the word that you said, and the just never am I ever going to quit mentality, right? And that only comes with somebody, you know, I guess you face adversity and you have a choice. You can either keep going or you quit.
Yeah.
You know, well, I don't like hanging around with quitters. Um, so you just keep going. And I think that's the difference right there. Some people will quit and give up and throw in the towel, and others just keep on moving.
I love it, man. That's solid. That's solid gold. Now, tell me this: when you were starting this out, those first 4 locations, were those franchisees that you signed on, or were those, company owned? And how did you what did that decision-making process look like to either go build a few of these, build a business plan to have like a 5-year, we're gonna scale to 25 locations and then maybe franchise it or franchise early? What made you decide to be a franchisor versus company owned, and then somebody comes along and says, "Hey, you should franchise this." What did that look like?
Yep. No, I knew it was going to be a franchise from the jump. Um, and the strategy was to open and have a home run and get to 500 locations in 5 years.
Okay.
and most of those would be franchised. That first year, we did have a home run for our first location, and then we were able to get 3 franchise locations opened, the first of which was in, Flower Mound, Texas, believe it or not.
Yep.
And Texas, by the way, is our best state, man. Look, I love Texas. It's the best state in the union to do business. Um, nobody has to convince me of that. I live it and breathe it and see it every day. It's because of the policies and just the mentality of Texas, right?
Amen.
Well, yeah. Um, I think, let's see, the second, 2, I can't remember 2, 3, 4, but I remember the one in Flower Mound, right?
Yeah.
And then, we started getting interest from all over, and pretty soon when Memphis pretty much filled up and kinda kept growing from there.
So, all right, so that takes a little bit that's a little bit of the business side. Now look, you gotta bear with me. I'll probably come back to it because I love to geek out, especially whenever you got like real life, like we were talking about. I went to SMU Business School. It's great. You get to hear about other entrepreneurs, but to get to have one like yourself sitting here to kind of tell the nitty-gritty story, the stuff that you're not going to get in some corporate finance meeting, the real life wars that you fought and all that. So I may come back to that, but I do want to talk about HOTWORX as a benefit because again, my second love, because the closest thing I have to a hobby, Steve, is health and wellness, trying to take care of myself. I'm 50 now and I want to stay as young as I can, as long as I can, and be able to, for my grandkids, be able to have a healthy VO2 max and healthy mitochondria and do those things with them so that they don't think that their pawpaw is just some crusty old fart. I want to go as long as I can. And so I geek out on, again, for lack of a better term, the biohacking and that sort of thing. So let's talk a little bit about the health benefits and the science behind HOTWORX and the benefits of sauna. And then when you go into that, tell us a little bit about the difference between like just regular dry sauna, infrared. I think a lot of folks they don't understand the difference or any of that. So kind of talk a little bit about the health benefits of HOTWORX and infrared sauna and what they can expect when if they decide to make this part of their fitness protocol.
Yep. So, the infrared heat is, radiant heat. It's like the heat that's rated, um, when you're outside and you walk out from the shade into the sunlight and you feel the warmth, that's the infrared kicking in, right? And in a infrared sauna, that's what you feel, you have infrared energy penetrating your body up to an inch and a half, firing into the mitochondria, supercharging the, energy burning process, right? Helping you oxidize fat, to burn for fuel, and, all the other many benefits that come as a byproduct of that. You don't get, the radiant version of heat when you're in a traditional sauna, right? Because you're just heating up the air around you. And, to get the same sweat on, you have to be at 170, 180 degrees inside of a traditional sauna, whereas 125 is just right if you're in an infrared sauna, you know, to get that, supercharged sweating going on. And when you're sweating, 2 things are happening. Obviously, the main function is to cool off your body, but the, byproduct is detox, right? It's another way to get rid of harmful, toxic waste that's in your system, you know? It's not the only detox method, but it is certainly, a worthy addition, to the way your body gets rid of, uh, bad things that exist inside of it. But, there are many, many benefits of absorbing infrared radiation. It's a good form of radiation. It is, by the way, non-ionizing, meaning it will not alter your DNA. Um, a bad form of radiation would be overexposure to UV, right? We all know that it could eventually cause skin cancer because it is an ionizing form of radiation, but you don't have that with infrared. It will not alter your DNA, therefore it's not harmful. It's beneficial. Um, so it's and the um infrared, you know, that um that we use is a longer wavelength, and it penetrates more deeply, but more gently than the shorter wavelength type of infrared, like the medium range. We use the far infrared. It's like what you get from our heaters is about 95% far infrared, and then a very small percentage of mid range infrared.
So if somebody was like they hear this and they've never been to a HOTWORX, but they've got one in their community, how do they get started and what does the experience look like? Because like I said, my daughters have done it. They told me about it. They loved it. They both told me how they were sweating their meat off and it was awesome. And by the way, you talking about the sweat, Steve. So that's one of the things I'm big on is like I have to have just a massive sweat at some point throughout the day. And it does. It's good for your skin. You feel better. I just can't say enough good things about it. And then also for my minimal knowledge of infrared, I've like right behind us over there, I've got one of the tall Juve lights that I use for recovery. Like I'll even now and I've got one that you put on your face, like after I shave, I'll wait a little while and I'll put it on just to kind of stimulate the collagen and kind of get some of that rejuvenating property. So I'm bullish on infrared myself. But if somebody's never heard of infrared and they're hearing this about HOTWORX and maybe they do yoga, how does it look to get started at HOTWORX and make that connection?
Yeah. So traditional hot yoga um, is not infrared, right? You can't go into a big room, and if somebody claims that you're getting an infrared hot yoga session, it's not true because with today's technology, you have to be 1 foot to 3 feet from the source of the infrared to actually get the absorption.
Right,
Any further away from it than that is just heat. It's just hot air.
right.
Okay. So that's the difference. And the best way to deliver infrared absorption is inside of a sauna. You can't really do it in a giant room with, say, 30 people claiming to do infrared yoga. Now, you get hot yoga, right? But with HOTWORX, it's not just hot yoga or any other heated exercise that we do. It's yes, it's hot, but it also is absorbing of infrared energy. We call it 3D training because it involves heat, infrared energy absorption, and exercise, right? And so the traditional yoga studios and even the hot ones are just going to be two-dimensional, if not one-dimensional. And with how it works, there we have the three elements working for you for your advantage. There's this scientific principle known as hormesis, right? And the idea is that it's good stress that causes your body to adapt to a changing environment and yields all kinds of positive results. And that's what HOTWORX is. You go into, yes, it's a challenging environment. It's something different that you're not used to, but um, it puts light stress on your body, and that's what causes your body to then adapt and transform. And be able to perform at a higher level. And once you get better and better inside of 125 degrees infrared heat, then everything you do outside of the sauna becomes easier and becomes more functional for you.
Have you mentioned that, and that's exactly right. And I think it's something that so many people lose sight of is that putting our body under tolerable stress and just kind of push a little bit the benefits it has. Have you read Michael Easter's book, Comfort Crisis, by chance, or heard about it?
I have not.
Dude, it's so awesome. It covers this exact same thing. It's like and I was just listening to someone else talk about how important it is to put our well, I think one of them was like it was maybe it was David Sinclair. It was David Sinclair talking about fasting and talking about how putting our body under this controllable duress, the importance of it, and we live in a and I talk about on this podcast all the time, Steve, that we live in this wow, unbelievable blessed modern world. It is modern habitat. I mean, dude, I always say the 10-cent calorie is a miracle, but it's also a curse. And we had this habitat that's so comfortable all the time that if you don't find those ways to challenge yourself physically, mentally, um, then you're just not going to be set up to perform well. So when you mention that, I'm here for it. Then also, dude, I tell you something that will make you just that will make you struggle, or at least me, is the yoga aspect. I'm an old P90X guy. I was an early adopter, and so I used to have buddies come over to my garage like at 5:30 every morning, and we would do P90X. And then the first one that Tony Horton did, I guess there was 3 of them altogether. I did all 3 of them, but did the original. He had like a 90-minute yoga, and I don't know what kind of yoga it was, but it was a 90-minute yoga, day in there, and I'm like, good lord, and we would all piss and moan come yoga day, put us through the plyo and all that, but that
Right.
yoga is a beat down, man, but it's so great. I say that it's a good beat down. We need those kind of beat downs, but you add this, infrared heat to it, I gotta believe it's some kind of a magical thing.
It is, man, and it chops that 90 minutes down, into 30 minutes, and look, I come from doing Bikram for a while, and I can tell you, I get just as good of a result from that 30-minute HOTWORX yoga as I did from Bikram,
Yep.
and in only 30 minutes. So, like I said, if you can save people time and get them even better results in less time, then I don't think that's ever gonna go out of style.
Yeah, yeah. Now, one of the things I wanna ask you, I hadn't planned on it, but I mean, it makes sense, as a franchisor. Yeah, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this show, and one of the things that a lot of entrepreneurs I think they miss is they're always the ones that I coach and talk to and advise a lot of times, they're looking for their thing to start. They're trying to start their own hot work. So they're trying to come up with their own big idea. And I always tell them, well, it's a lot easier to either go buy some revenue, go buy a business that somebody else has is successful and they don't have a second generation wanting to take it over, something like that. A lot less risky if you do it right. Just don't screw the thing up and you can scale it a little bit. Or possibly like my very first business was a Century 21 real estate franchise. It's all the processes and tools are in place. It can just short circuit a lot of the learning curve. Yes, you're going to pay for that in the form of franchise fees, but to me, it is a great model for that would be entrepreneur that doesn't have their own big idea. So when you're out there, and I imagine you've at the scale you are now, you've got some great master franchisors or people out there doing business development looking for that franchisee to that I guess, man, going back to Oxford, Mississippi, building that first unit to over 800 now, but it's still your name, your reputation. What kind of entrepreneur are you looking for to bring into the HOTWORX fold?
Yeah, Jason, we've been very fortunate with this brand, meaning HOTWORX, to have 90% of our growth be organic,
That's awesome.
right? Yes, we do advertise to recruit new franchisees, but it serves more as like, um, I would say awareness to folks who are already members.
Yep.
They come, they join. I hear the same story all the time. Every week we have a new group of brand new franchisees that go through orientation day, we call it. And I always, I'm the first executive to give a presentation that lasts about an hour. But I hear the same thing over and over of how these new franchisees came into the HOTWORX system. And it'll go something like this. So my friend Sue invited me to come work out with her at HOTWORX and telling me all about it. And I was like, all right, I got to go check this out. And I went and I did the workout, and then I became obsessed with it and fell in love with how it works, and then realized, hey, this is a franchise, and decided, you know what? They need one over here by where I live. And so 90% of our growth has gone like that. And it, it it's great when you can have that. It makes recruiting easier, because if you can have the culture extend itself from customers, then you're way better off. It makes the job, and it is a deliberate thing to build the right culture for an organization. But if you start out with building the right customer culture, and by that I mean an ideal, you have an ideal customer avatar in your mind that you know who she is in the case of how it works. And that's what you go for, and you build this massive marketing impact for that target. Then you will get that target, and as long as it matches with the business that you built, meaning the design, the vibe, the offering, the services and everything, then you'll have a much greater percentage of selling memberships, to the people you try to recruit. And then with that massive impact from the target of trying to build the right culture of a customer base, you'll get a ripple effect. You'll get a giant impact like a boulder falling into a calm body of water, and you'll get that all important base, in our case of 25 to 40-year-old female base, but you'll also get a massive ripple effect of the 18 to 80-year-old female. And the psychographic we look for is who wants to come and discover her inner warrior as well, right?
Yeah.
And then you'll get some guys. We don't target guys. Yoga is 90% female business. I mean, let's just be honest. Guys like it too, and I encourage. There are a lot of pro athletes, hockey players, football players, NBA players, as well as WNBA players and tennis players that swear by yoga, right?
Yep.
As a part of their training regimen. So yeah, it's not just for women, but if you want to have a business and build the right culture, then you need to know who you need to go for based on the probability of this customer coming in and being in and remaining in our case, a state of fitness bliss. You know, our whole mission as a franchise company is to help our franchisees become profitable through the bliss of the customer base.
Oh, I like that.
And, that's what we're here for, but you have to begin with building the right customer culture as a base for your business so that they can be in that state of bliss, and so that that then can turn into the next great franchisee that you will have.
One of the things you said, Steve, that I think a lot of people miss in business is that they don't take enough time deciding who that avatar customer is. They don't because they and you mentioned earlier, I mean, product is incredible. You gotta have a good product, but a good product for whom? You
Right. That's right.
I think that's something that it took me a while to learn in some of my businesses is if and you can't be everything to everyone. You've got to really just hone in. And if you do that, then all of a sudden, if you've got a like-minded tribe of people that you are seeking to serve them where they are, what they want, dude, it is, and you've proven it. You've proven it. And not only from again, you have 2 customer bases. You've got your franchisees, and then you've got the folks that actually sign up and come take the classes because even if they are your franchisees, technically customer, they're still yours. I mean, it's your tribe. And so if you can get that avatar and a lot of people, you don't want them as a customer. It just not because they're a bad person or whatever, it's just because they're just not gonna like it. And so there and I think that's something that a lot of business people that they miss is that they try to be everything to everyone or just try to cast this net out there instead of just dialing in to know Who do we want our customer to be? What does that customer look like? How old are they? Where do they live? How often do they train? Why do they understand? Why do they want to know about infrared? So yeah, man, I think that that's gold for any business. I don't care if it's health and wellness, whatever business you're in. I think that is a nugget of wisdom that people should take to heart.
Yeah, I think you have to focus on being absolutely incredible for a small group, a very targeted group, rather than, like you said, going in trying to recruit everybody, try to be everything to everybody. You wind up being a master of nothing. You know, you wind up being mediocre at best to a bunch of people.
One
And that's never going to be the recipe for massive success.
agree. Now, before we go, we got a little bit of time left here. I want to respect your time, but I got to ask you because you're freaking jacked. I mean, people that aren't watching this on YouTube, Steve's freaking jacked. And so, and we're probably close to the same age. I mean, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 62,
I mean,
Jason.
dude, you're crushing it. I mean, Brad Pitt, I think 62, and everybody talks about how good he looks. So I think you got something there, Steve. I think you got the Brad Pitt effect. So, what are you doing now to train? And dude, I'm a geek on this stuff. I told you, so don't leave anything out. I want to know what you eat. I want to know how you sleep. I want to know if you track your sleep. I see you got an Apple Watch. What are you using that for? All your biometrics. Don't leave anything out. Tell me what you're doing to keep the system running clean.
Yeah. Well, I'll try to go fast and sum up my weekly routine. It goes like this. Like this morning, and I do have a weight room at my house. I got up, I trained with weights. I did back, but I'll do each body part once a week, and that begins on a Monday with chest, and this is weight training. And once I'm done weight training in the morning, and I'm looking at 20, maybe 30 minutes of weight training, and then I'll immediately go to a 15-minute hit.
Okay.
You know, normally I am at a HOTWORX in the morning. I like to get there about 7 a.m. And so I'll do the weights are, so it's chest on Monday, um, back on Tuesday, shoulders on Wednesday, guns or biceps and triceps on Thursday, and then lower body on Friday.
Okay.
And that's immediately followed by a 15-minute hit, either rowing or the total body trainer, which we call hot blast or a hot cycle,
Okay.
right? And then 2 or 3 times a week in the evening, I'll go in and do a form of isometrics, hot yoga, hot Pilates, hot, sometimes I do hot bar none. Sometimes I really like our new workout, hot stretch. It's the first time an athletic stretching routine has been turned into a workout. You feel euphoric after that one.
Okay.
So, that's the workout schedule. As far as the, nutrition, I do, take creatine. I like creatine gummies. I try to remember to take that daily. We're coming out with a HOTWORX, creatine. We have a power gummy line of different types of supplements, and we're adding the creatine to it pretty soon. So there's that. And then, I'm a firm believer in the traditional just getting your macros right, making sure that every meal that you take in is balanced properly for you based on your percentage of protein, carbohydrates, and fats that you need. Um, I usually just do the 3 meals a day, but I don't start eating until around 11 or 12, and I stop usually at 7. I'll never go past 8. That Monday through Friday on that. Sometimes on the weekends, I'll cheat, a little bit, but I keep it really strict during the week like that.
Yeah, same thing. That's one thing. See, a lot of people that they hear the word fast and they get nervous and scared. That's what I tell them. Just push it off as fast as far as you can. If you're used to eating breaks at 9, see if you can wait till 10. If you can I'm the same way. Like this podcast was perfect because it's 11 o'clock, and so I'm like, all right, I am not going to touch any food till after we.
Right.
So
Same I had the same idea.
Just having this demarcation point because I don't know about you, but during this conversation, I'm not thinking about food. I mean, so just finding those those little things to get your mind elsewhere,
Right.
it works. And then if you just tell people, hey, don't start eating till this time and cut it off at this time, they'll end up in a fast, usually kind of fall into a 16-8, maybe a 14-hour fast. But either way, they're giving their body time to kind of reset on the digestion. And that is so key. Is just, one of the things as I study more and more about longevity, I'm finding is that they don't know why, they can't tell you why fasting works. They just know it does. And it's all about calorie restriction. If you can just try to get into a little bit of a deficit, don't kill yourself, makes all the difference. And then I know from your bodybuilding days that, you've got to be able to attest to the fact that it's something that I was neglecting for a while. I'd gotten all away from my resistance training, but dude, it is so critical. And so, I mean, of everything you're doing, wouldn't you agree that that resistance training is probably what's keeping you young as much as anything?
Absolutely, big part of it, and then getting the cardio and the sauna workouts. And I would say, for me, at least, what keeps me driven to train is I always have a a, um, fitness vacation scheduled.
I love that.
What I mean by that is I like to snow ski, I like to climb mountains, and so I have, a mountain that we're gonna climb, tallest mountain in Costa Rica, 2 other guys, good friends of mine, but both in the HOTWORX, organization, and we're gonna go climb the tallest mountain in Costa Rica, and then after we climb the mountain, then we're gonna go have fun at the resort, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like that if you always have a fitness event type of vacation, for me, it's snow skiing and hiking, but for other folks, maybe it involves, I don't know, cycling or running or, surfing. You can go down the list of whatever sport you love, right?
Yeah.
And make it an event like that, and then you will train harder. If you have 2 or 3 of those events like that every year, right? Space them out every 3 or 4 months. I'm going to a new vacation that involves a fitness event that I am training for. And I'm training for this thing like I'm training to win the Super Bowl.
Love it.
Right. And if you can always have that on on your calendar every 3 or 4 months, it will take your training to another level. Like I'm 62. A lot of ways I feel like I'm in my 30s. I'm still climbing mountain. We climbed Mount Fuji, last, August. We've done some spectacular climbs. We did, Kilimanjaro. We got to the top in 3.5 days.
Oh my.
27% success rate on that route, and we got to the top in 3.5 days. So, how it works has been a game changer for me. Yes, I'm always gonna continue with the weight training, but adding Hot Works in for the flexibility, the pliability, and the cardio has been an absolute game changer.
All right, I gotta ask you, man, on some of the Fuji, Kilimanjaro. So I've done some climbs in the foothills of the Himalayas. I was on a mission trip, and so it was some bad trails. I mean, purely, straight up. Those. I don't know what it's like for on those, but like in the Himalayas, they're not like Pecos Baldy or whatever the Rockies where it's all marked and it's goat trails and it's straight up. There's no ridges, and it nearly killed me. I mean, I dehydrated. It was wicked. But I wanna hear about the physicality and kind of what were those treks like? And were there any moments where you were like, "Holy crap, what have I done?" I mean, kind of talk just a little bit about that. I gotta hear some of that.
Right, there's been some, "Oh, you know what" moments that we got. I remember Kilimanjaro when the push to the summit was you get this last hut where you get about 4 hours of sleep if you're lucky, and then, the guide will wake you up at midnight, and you put on all the gear, and in this case, you're putting on glacier gear because Kilimanjaro is very interesting. It's the world's tallest standalone mountain, right? And there it is on the savannah, and then there's this giant old volcano, and it's only 30 miles from the equator.
Right.
But when you get to that final push to the summit, you're in a glacier. You go from the rainforest to the moorlands to the dry desert, glacier that looks like Mars, by the way, and then you get to that last push, which is all and it was sleeting, and there we were zigzagging, grudging it all the way to the top. They had some guys hallucinating and throwing up, and crazy things, but we got some of them didn't make it, had to abort, but we kept going, and we finally got to the top, but you still had to go across a good ways to get to the actual summit. There's like 3 peaks, they call it. So we get to the first peak and finally get over. We're climbing nothing but boulders, and it's at night with a headlamp, and it's bleeding. We get over, and there's this long freaking trench, right? And it's all ice. It's just kinda dug out, I guess, for all the people walking to try to get to the summit, and it's ice. And on the mountains side to the left, I remember these ginormous, like, tree trunk size icicles. They look like they've been there forever. But then to the right was the oh, you know what?
Yeah.
The gnarly aspect of it all. It was just a straight drop, and if you took one wrong step, you're a goner, and I don't know how far that drop was, but it was just straight down, and you're walking over a glacier, to finally and eventually get to that actual summit where they had the iconic, like the name, all that stuff that
Yeah.
they had on top of Kilimanjaro.
Wow, man. Would you do it again?
There I would do it again. Now Aconcagua, so Aconcagua, we did not get to the summit. 2 we had 4 people, 2 had to abort because of, altitude sickness at 18,500 feet. Me and Jeremy kept going, and, we made it to 20,500. And this is a two-week expedition, so this is over time that all this is happening. And the reason that we had to abort eventually on that one, and by the way, it was like -20 up there, and you had these, you look like the Michelin Man with the gear that you have, and you have these boots that come up to your knee, and then underneath you have these giant, bikes, and that's how you're climbing. But, we couldn't get any sleep, just couldn't sleep. I mean, you got howling winds at like 60, 70 mile an hour, and it is freezing, freezing cold, like -20. Um, there are many other things that were gnarly, but yeah, but I do remember getting to the last camp. They call the high camp on Aconcagua. Aconcagua, by the way, is in the Andes Mountains down in Argentina, right on the border with Chile,
Okay.
and it's the tallest mountain in the Western Hemisphere. So it's one of the 7 summits, and it's obviously the tallest mountain in South America. But it is the place that you go to train for Everest,
Okay.
and, but right before we got to the high camp and we're making the push to get to there was this kinda curve in the mountain, and you mentioned these rocks that just go up. It was kinda like that. It had a cable, it had just this cable that you grab with your left hand, and with your right hand, and with your boots, with the crampons and all, you're just trying to grudge and get around this corner to get to the top finally, to get to that camp. And to the right, it was just jagged rocks, this infinite drop seemed like, and that was a very gnarly moment. Maybe even more so than that Kilimanjaro that I was talking about.
Really?
They had a they had guys that they were helibacking out of there, um, left and right. Helicopters would come to get people. So it was look, yeah, I would do it again. It's, but, just try to, to have adventure and take calculated risk. And I don't know, it's pretty cool. I've had a lot of fun with that.
It is tough. I mean, like when people ask me about like what I do, mine again that I did, and it was nothing like what you've gone to. Because like I said, the object of that trip wasn't actually to hit those summits, but nevertheless, it became a pretty treacherous trip. It's crazy about like we were talking about earlier, how you have to put yourself in those kind of stressful situations. It's like I don't want to do a life threatening feat every few months or whatever, but man, there's almost no substitute for putting yourself just on the edge and it kinda sucks because you can't simulate it. It has to be real to really be effective, I think. But man, if you can find those moments where you can get just up to that edge, the benefits of it and kind of and what you like as a business leader, as just kinda dealing with all the crap that's going on in this world right now, when you put yourself in those moments, at least for me, when I'm able to get my faculties right and really think about things clearly and remember what it was like being, in some of the situations I put myself into, it's like, I'm going to make it through this. I mean, this isn't this too shall pass. I mean, I got this. And you almost need those things to look back on to kind of as a reminder, and it just makes you realize just how badass life can be, how awesome we are as freaking human beings. As the top of the food chain, you realize, okay, this is why we are. We're some pretty freaking unbelievably designed animals here. There's all that, and you only get it by putting yourself in those awesome situations. So man, I envy that, dude. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's been fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah, brother. Well, Steve, I've taken up enough of your time. This has been an incredible conversation, dude. I really appreciate you sharing your story with me.
Yeah, Jason, it's been great. It's great to get to know you, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on your show.
Well, and don't let this be the last time we talk, dude. You're welcome back anytime, and offline anything that shoot, I may call you for advice at some point, dude. You've got some awesome wisdom I can tell, and I'd be grateful to stay in contact.
Come on down to New Orleans sometime. I'll show you around. But yeah, love to talk again soon.
All right, brother. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate you.
All right, Jason. Thank you, bud.
The content provided in this podcast, The Healthy CEO, is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The opinions expressed by our hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Healthy CEO. Any information provided by our hosts or guests, including any physicians who may appear on the podcast, is solely for informational purposes and does not create any doctor-patient relationship. Listeners are advised to consult with their healthcare providers before making any changes to their health routines. The Healthy CEO and its affiliates assume no responsibility or liability for any consequence resulting directly or indirectly from any action or inaction you take based on the information provided in this podcast.